Tonight, don't try to understand anything. Just notice this. You are already here. Your body is somewhere safe enough to rest. A pillow, a blanket, a quiet corner of the world that doesn't need you to solve it. And right now, there is a small trap your mind loves. It looks harmless. It even looks spiritual. The trap is this. You can spend your whole life collecting the right words and never touch the peace those words were meant to point to. So let me offer you a simple image, a finger and a moon. A teacher lifts a hand, points upward. The moon hangs in the night calm and full. But the student squints at the hand and says, "Your finger is crooked." If you've ever done that in your own way, you're not alone. We all do it. We analyze the voice. We judge the method. We compare the teaching to the teaching we heard last week. We polish ideas until they shine, and somehow we stay restless. Here is the quiet prediction gap to carry with you tonight. Before this story ends, you will notice one ordinary thing, a sound, a sensation, a small detail, and it will feel like a door opening. Not because the world changes, because you stop staring at the finger for half a breath. That is all, half a breath. That's enough. So settle in. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop a millimeter. Let your eyes soften behind the lids. We're going to wander through a handful of stories, not as lessons, more like lanterns on a path. And every lantern is only pointing. The moon is something else. The moon is what happens when you actually look. There was once a man named Kato who lived in a valley filled with books. The valley loved books the way some people love mirrors. They loved reflections of wisdom. They loved the comfort of explanations. They loved sentences that felt like a warm coat. Kato was a gifted speaker. When he talked about compassion, people cried. When he described letting go, people felt lighter in their ribs. He could take a sharp, difficult truth and wrap it in velvet. Students traveled for weeks to sit in his hall. They arrived with ink and paper, hungry for phrases to keep. And Kato gave them plenty. He built careful bridges of language. He made the invisible feel organized. He explained and explained until the minds in the room nodded in rhythm. By every measure, he was successful, but there was one student who didn't nod. Her name was Lena. She was young, quiet, and strange in the way that honest people can seem strange. She listened with full attention, yet her face never relaxed into satisfaction. After 3 years, Lena walked up to Kato after a lecture and said, "Teacher, your words are beautiful, but I am not at peace." Kato smiled the kind of smile teachers practice, the patient one, the reassuring one. Lena continued, "I can repeat what you said. I can explain it to others, but at night my mind is still a river in flood. I have all the words. I don't have the stillness." For a moment, Kato felt irritation flare like a match. Not at Lena, at the question itself, because the question didn't fit his system. He cleared his throat. "Understanding takes time," he said. "Study more deeply. Be patient." Lena bowed, but her eyes stayed on him as if she were listening for what he didn't say. That winter snow came early, and with the snow came a traveler, an old woman wrapped in a simple cloak. No title, no reputation, just a pilgrim with weathered hands and calm eyes. The valley scholars offered her shelter politely, then forgot about her. But Kato noticed something. When the old woman sat in his lecture hall, she didn't write. She didn't even look like she was trying to remember. She simply listened, as if her listening itself was the practice. And when she walked through the courtyard, her steps were unhurried. Her presence didn't depend on anything Kato could explain. One evening, snow fell softly, turning sound into velvet. Kato found himself walking beside her under lantern light. "You have heard my teaching," Kato said. "What do you think?" The old woman watched a snowflake land on her sleeve and melt. "Your words are very beautiful," she said, "like paintings of mountains." Kato straightened slightly. He liked that. But she continued, "A painting can help someone imagine a mountain, but I wonder how many people here have actually climbed one." The air felt colder for a moment. Not from weather, from truth. Kato swallowed. "What would you have me do?" he asked. "Words are my tool." The old woman paused. Then she lifted her hand and pointed beyond the roofline. The moon was there, bright, unbothered, silent. "Words are fingers," she said. "They show us where to look. But if people stare at the finger, they never see what the finger points to." Kato stared at her hand. Then, almost unwillingly, he looked up. The moon didn't explain itself. It didn't need to. The old woman lowered her hand and walked on. Snow filled the space she left behind. Kato went back to his school with a thorn in his chest. In the days that followed, he watched his students. They wrote faster. They underlined his best phrases. They competed to repeat his sentences in the most perfect way. They loved his finger. So Kato tried something. In the middle of a lecture, he stopped speaking. He didn't announce a practice. He didn't explain the silence. He simply stopped. He sat there breathing, looking at the room, inviting them without words to feel their own presence. The students shifted, coughed, cleared throats, looked around as if silence were a mistake. After a minute, someone asked nervously, "Teacher, is something wrong?" Kato felt a quiet sorrow, not for them, for himself, because he recognized the fear. They didn't know what to do without the finger. That night, he remembered Lena, her restless river, her 3 years of collecting, her hunger for the moon, and something in Kato softened. He began to change his teaching slowly. He still spoke, but he left space. He asked questions that didn't end in answers. He invited attention back to breath, to sound, to the feel of sitting. Some students left. They wanted the old certainty. They wanted the coat of explanation. But others stayed, and Lena stayed. Years later, visitors would ask his students what Kato taught, and the students would struggle. He doesn't give us much to hold, they'd say, but somehow we feel more real after listening. Kato would hear this and smile privately, because that confusion was a sign. It meant the students were finally looking up. Now, let's step away from that valley for a moment, because you don't have to be a scholar to stare at fingers. You can do it in a kitchen, in a relationship, in a simple moment where life offers you the moon and your mind offers you commentary. There was a young man named Hiro who lived in a river town. He loved wisdom the way some people love rare coins. He memorized sayings. He collected teachings. He could quote masters from different centuries like a machine that never forgot. People came to Hiro with questions. He always had answers. Sometimes he had 3 answers arranged like a neat set of shelves. But Hiro slept poorly. At night his mind would replay what he read, what he should read next, what he might say if someone challenged him. His library kept him awake. One autumn festival, a potter came to town. An old woman named Yuna with simple bowls in the market. Her pottery wasn't fancy. It was honest. Smooth where it needed to be. Rough where it didn't apologize. Hiro noticed something before he even met her. Yuna moved as if she was not hurrying away from herself. He approached her stall with his favorite kind of curiosity, the kind that wanted to turn everything into an idea. He greeted her, quoted a teaching about simplicity, then another about mindful hands. Yuna listened politely. Then she picked up a small cup and placed it in his palm. "Feel it," she said. Hiro nodded eager, and immediately he began to explain. He described the texture. He described non-judgment. He described being present. Yuna raised a hand. "I didn't ask what you know about feeling," she said. "I asked what you feel." Something in Hiro stalled. It was such a simple question, too small for his library. He looked at the cup again. He felt the warmth from sun, the weight, the tiny imperfections that made it real, the way the rim touched his thumb. For a few seconds he forgot to explain, and in that forgetting his chest loosened. Yuna watched him. Now she said softly, "You are holding it, not thinking about holding it." Hiro swallowed. "I've studied presence for years," he whispered, "and I have never been present." Yuna nodded, not as accusation, as recognition. "You have many fingers," she said. "That isn't bad. But fingers are not the moon." "How do I change?" Hiro asked. Yuna didn't give him a method. She didn't assign a practice schedule. She pointed to the cup. "You already changed," she said. "For a moment you felt instead of explained. Do that again, and again, That's all. When the festival ended, Yuna left town, but she gave Hiro the small cup as a gift. Not to think with, she said, to come back with. Hiro kept it for the rest of his life, and whenever he found himself building arguments in his head, or chasing another teaching like a new possession, he would pick up that cup, feel the weight, and remember that the moon was never in his sentences. Maybe you can do this too, not with a cup necessarily. With your own breath, feel the next inhale, not the idea of inhale, the actual sensation. Cool air in the nose, a gentle lift in the ribs. Then the exhale releasing, just that. Right now, as you listen, your mind may try to turn this into a technique. It may say, okay, I should do this every night, or this is mindfulness. I understand. That's fine, that's the mind's job. But you don't have to follow it, because here's the twist that hides in plain sight. Even this story is a finger. Even these words, even my voice, all of it is pointing, and the moon is not in what I'm saying. The moon is in what is quietly noticing the sound. There was another person who understood this in a different way. Her name was Toma. She was a map maker, a brilliant one. People came from far villages to ask Toma how to travel, where the river bends, which pass is safer in winter, how to avoid the steep road after heavy rain. Toma knew every line, every symbol. She could trace the land with a confident finger. What most people didn't know was this. Toma rarely traveled herself. Why would she? She had maps. Maps felt clean, organized, predictable. The real world was muddy, uncertain, full of weather that didn't follow rules. So she stayed in her workshop, studying lines like scripture. One map troubled her, though, a place called the Valley of Mists. On her papers, it was almost blank. Different travelers drew it differently. The river seemed to change direction. The forest seemed to appear and disappear. Toma hated the blank space. It felt like a flaw in her identity. One day, an old traveler named Zen came to her door. He wanted directions into the Valley of Mists. Toma spread out her best maps and frowned. "I can't help you," she admitted. "They don't agree." "I don't know which one is true." Zen looked at the maps, then at Toma. "Why do they need to agree?" he asked. "Because I need certainty," she said. "People depend on me." Zen smiled gently. "The valley doesn't depend on paper," he said. "The land is what it is, whether your drawings are neat or not." Then he asked a question that made Toma's stomach tighten. "Have you ever walked the roads you describe?" Toma defended herself quickly. "I know them," she said. "I have studied them for years." Zen waited, as if he could hear the difference between knowing and meeting. "Have you felt the mud?" he asked. Have you heard the river at the fork? Have you smelled pine in the high passes? Toma had no answer. Zen offered quietly, "Come with me, not to make a better map, just to see." Toma didn't sleep well that night. Her maps felt suddenly thin, like a picture of a meal, useful but not nourishing. In the morning, she locked her workshop and followed Zen. At first, she compared everything to the maps, the curve here, the hill there. But as days passed, something cracked open. She noticed things no map would ever mention. The way light changes in different forests, the sound of birds shifting as altitude rises, the feeling of wind carrying dampness from water before you even see the river. These details weren't necessary for getting somewhere, but they were necessary for being somewhere. When they reached the Valley of Mists, Toma understood. The valley could not be captured. It shifted with time and weather. The river braided and split and rejoined like a living thought. Her first reaction was frustration, then something unexpected, relief. Because the valley's refusal to be pinned down meant she could stop trying to pin it down. She sat on a hill and watched mist lift like breath. For the first time, she let the world be bigger than her symbols. Zen said softly, "Maps are good servants, poor masters." Toma nodded. "I've been living in drawings," she whispered, "and calling it life." She returned home later, and she still made maps, but she changed how she spoke. She would say, "This is what the map can show, and this is what it can't." She encouraged travelers to look up, to listen, to notice. Sometimes when the workshop was quiet, she left the papers behind and walked, not to perfect lines, to meet the land. Now let's bring this closer, to tonight, to your own bed, because you have maps too, not on paper, in the mind, beliefs about who you are, stories about what life is, expectations that quietly tell you what should happen next. These maps help you navigate. They have value, but they are not the territory. And sometimes when you are tired, your maps become loud. They insist, they replay, they try to manage sleep like it's a project. If your mind is doing that right now, notice it kindly. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to win. Just recognize. Those thoughts are fingers. They point. They are not the moon. The moon is the simple fact that you are aware, even if the mind is noisy, even if the body is heavy, even if the day was messy. Awareness is here. There was a merchant named Nara who learned this through loss. Nara was famous for her ledgers. She recorded every coin, every trade, every promise made between hands. Her books were so neat that people admired them like art, and Nara admired them too. She trusted numbers more than she trusted life. When the numbers rose, she felt safe. When the numbers dipped, she felt afraid, even if her actual life remained comfortable. Then one autumn a fire swept through the market district, and her main warehouse burned, with it her ledgers. In one night, 20 years of careful counting became ash. Nara was not grieving silk or spice at first. She was grieving the numbers. Without the records, she felt lost, as if wealth only existed when written. Her sister Mira came to help. Mira lived simply. She taught children. She didn't count much beyond what mattered. "You still have your house," Mira said. "You still have other stores of goods. You still have your health." Nara's voice shook. "But I don't know what I have." Mira looked at her quietly. "When we were children," she asked, "did you count your breaths to know you were alive?" Nara frowned. "What does that mean?" Mira continued gently. "Did you need a ledger of heartbeats to trust your heart was beating? Or did you simply live?" Something in Nara's chest softened. She remembered childhood, fields, streams, the simple certainty of being. Mira took her hand. "A ledger is a finger," she said. "It points at wealth, but it is not wealth." In the weeks that followed, Nara did something she hadn't done in years. She went to her remaining warehouses and touched her goods. She smelled spice. She felt silk. She appreciated pottery as more than a number. She discovered something almost embarrassing. Her life had been rich, but she had been too busy counting it to taste it. When she rebuilt her records, she still kept them well, but she didn't worship them, she used them. Then she looked up. That is what this teaching keeps whispering. Use what helps, but don't confuse the tool with the thing. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how do I actually do that? How do I stop staring at fingers? Here is the honest answer. You won't stop forever. You will do it again tomorrow, maybe in 10 minutes. You will get pulled into thought, into planning, into explaining, into proving. And that's okay. Zen is not asking you to become a different species. It's inviting a small, repeatable return, a gentle question. Am I looking at the finger right now, or am I looking at the moon? You can ask it without drama, like checking the weather. And when you notice you're staring at the finger, you don't scold yourself. You simply look up. Look up into sensation, into breath, into sound, into the simple presence that is already holding you. There is a monk named Koji who needed to learn this in a monastery. Koji was devoted. He practiced perfectly. He sat with straight posture. He chanted precisely. He followed every form as if form were salvation. The other monks admired him, but Koji was tight inside, like a knot that never loosened. The abbot, an old woman named Ren, watched him with kind eyes. One afternoon she asked Koji to walk with her in the garden. Maple leaves drifted down like slow thoughts. "You have practiced for 15 years, Ren said. Has it brought you peace?" Koji tried to answer the right way. He wanted to say yes, but honesty rose first. "I am disciplined," he said. "I understand much, but peace, I don't know." Ren nodded as if she had been waiting for that sentence. "You have built a fine raft," she said, "perhaps the finest in the monastery." Koji felt pride, then guilt for feeling pride, then more tightness. Ren continued, "Tell me, have you crossed the river?" Koji blinked. "I'm still building," he said. "I'm still refining." Ren stopped under a bare branch where one leaf clung stubbornly. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we polish the raft so much that we forget it was made for water." Koji felt defensive. "But the teachings say we must practice diligently." "Yes," Ren said. "And that teaching is also a raft." She pointed to the leaf. "It is holding on so tightly. Holding on was useful in spring, but it is autumn now. The leaf's purpose is complete." Ren looked at Koji with a tenderness that made his defenses feel childish. For the next month, she said, "I want you to practice imperfectly." Koji stared. "Imperfectly? Yes. Stop trying to be correct. Stop clutching the form like a lifeline. Just practice." Koji's fear rose like cold water. Without perfection, who would he be? But he obeyed. And that month changed him. He let his posture soften. He chanted without obsessing. He walked at his own natural pace. At first it felt like failing. Then it felt like breathing. Space opened up in his mind. He noticed birds outside the hall. He noticed warmth in his hands. He noticed that the tightness in his chest was not holiness. It was gripping. One morning, sitting in meditation without trying to do it right, Koji simply noticed he was present. No fireworks, no visions, just presence. He began to laugh quietly, not because it was funny, because it was simple. And he had made it complicated for 15 years. Later, he told Ren I was polishing the finger. I forgot to look at the moon. Ren smiled. "The moon rises every night," she said. "Ordinary things are not ordinary when we finally see them. Now, let me bring this to the soft edge of your own night." Because the moon doesn't need you to be a monk or a scholar or a perfect practitioner. The moon is what is here, the feel of your blanket, the weight of your body sinking, the sound of distant life outside your room, even the thoughts that come and go like clouds. You can let thoughts be clouds. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to pull them apart. You can notice the space they move through. That space is the moon. And here comes the gentle twist I promised. Most people think the moon is some special state, a dramatic spiritual moment, a permanent calm, a mind that never worries. But the moon Zen points to is quieter than that. It is the simple noticing that happens before you name anything, before you call it good or bad, before you call it me or mine, before you call it success or failure. It is just this. And because it is so simple, the mind often rejects it. It says, that can't be it. It's too ordinary. Give me something I can hold. So we go back to fingers. back to theories, back to collecting. But tonight, you can experiment. Just for this moment, feel the contact between your body and the bed. Notice pressure, warmth, the places that are supported, the places that are still holding tension. If you find tension, don't fix it harshly. Just notice it like you notice a candle flame. Then let the exhale soften around it. If a thought comes, let it come. If it leaves, let it leave. You don't have to build a story about it, because the story is a finger, and the moon is the listening. Somewhere in the world, someone is reading a book about sleep right now. Someone is arguing about the best technique. Someone is thinking, if I could just understand my mind, I could finally rest. And understanding has its place. It can guide, it can point, but the deepest rest does not arrive through argument. It arrives when you stop trying to carry your mind like a burden. Sleep is not a problem to solve. Sleep is a river you can step into, and the body knows how. You can trust that, and if you can't trust it fully, that's okay. Trust a little. Trust for one breath. Here's another small prediction gap close to the end. In a moment, your mind may try to grab one of these lines, to keep it, to remember it, to make it a new tool. And when it does, notice the grabbing, not with shame, with curiosity, because noticing the grabbing is already looking up. You might even smile at it. The mind is trying to help. It just doesn't know how to stop. So you can let it be a helper, not a ruler. Let it point. Then look. Now I want to tell you one last very small story. It is not grand. It does not involve monasteries or travelers. It involves laundry. An old woman named Hara lived in a village by a river. She had searched for wisdom for decades, teachers, practices, journeys. Then in her 60s, the search slowed. Not because she gave up, because she noticed something. One morning she was hanging sheets on a line. The wind caught the fabric and lifted it like a sail. Sunlight poured through the cloth, turning it almost transparent. And for no reason she could explain, she actually saw it. Not as laundry, not as a chore, not as time passing. She saw whiteness, movement, light, air, a simple moment alive. The seeking mind paused, and in that pause, she felt peace, not as a concept, as a presence. Later, a young visitor asked her, "What did you find?" Hara shrugged gently. "I stopped looking past. What was here," she said. "That's all." "And what was here?" the young woman asked. Hara lifted her hand and pointed at the cup of tea between them, then at the sound of wind outside, then at the young woman's face. "This," Hara said. "Just this." The young woman frowned. "That seems too simple." Hara smiled. "Yes, that's why most people miss it." Now you don't have to force simplicity. You don't have to make an event out of it. Just let the night be the night. Let your breath keep doing what it has done your whole life. In, out. Let the body grow heavier. Let the edges of the world soften. And if you fall asleep before the last sentence ends, that is perfect, because you won't be holding the finger anymore. You'll be resting under the moon. And if you don't fall asleep yet, that's also fine. You can simply keep listening, not for meaning, for quiet. Because the moon is not the end of a journey, it's the beginning of seeing. Maybe tomorrow, in the middle of an ordinary moment, you will catch it again. A spoon in your hand, a bird call, a beam of light on the floor, and you'll realize softly, oh, there it is. Not a conclusion, just a noticing. So for now, let the words dissolve. Let the stories become mist. Let the mind loosen its grip. And let the night hold you. The moon will still be there whether you name it or not.